Hi guys, we're here again in a Friday of reading The Myth of Normal, this wonderful book written by Dr. Gabor Maté. I hope that you guys are able to listen to me. And if not, please let me know so that I can correct my sound. All right. So we are reading the third part of chapter 6 of The Myth of Normal, attached or authentic. Let's do a little bit of a recap. Whenever we are attached to something, to someone, to a relationship, with my work, with people, with my life, pretty much what we're actually doing is telling ourselves that there is this connection happening from a place of not fulfillment, not becoming complete. So what we propose from the perspective of compassion and inquiry, from the perspective of Gabor Maté, is actually that we don't have to be attached. We can be authentic. So let's just continue with this reading. Hopefully we're going to finish the chapter today. Let me know of your comments, any questions that you may have. You know that I work with people that are building their practices, they're growing their practice, and they're going through anxiety because it's part of the healing process. So I am doing this connection between Gabor Maté's book, The Myth of Normal, with building a successful practice. Okay, so it says, another column memorializes a woman who, despite her metastatic cancer, did not give up any of her roles, including several hockey practices, school board, orchestra, and other extracurricular activities, and even took on new ones, all directed towards helping others as the disease spread out throughout her body. I am all for enthusiastic engagement with one's community, but there is such a thing as a lust for life, and there is being driven to derive one's sense of self from constant activity, even to the point of me not being able to pause for self-care when disaster strikes. As a final example, we have a widower remembering his wife, quote unquote, dead of breast cancer at the age of 55, sorry, with brackets, in these terms. In her entire life, she never got into a fight with anyone. She had no ego. She just blended in with the environment in an unassuming manner. The phrase no ego, quote unquote, should give us pause, intended to lovingly convey an admirable lack of arrogance or conceit. Those two little words revealed to me a deeper story, says Gabor. A healthy ego, not in the sense of superiority, but in a stable identity, the ground of self-respect, self-regulation, capacity for good decision-making, a working memory, and more, is a vital asset of a thriving human being. And this is it. When we are attached, when we are coming from a place of attachment, we are really not self-respecting, self-regulated, and we cannot develop that capacity for good decision-making. If you are building your practice, my dear friend, if you are making that practice grow, if you want to grow in your cells, we need to make sure that you're building it from this place, okay? Unbeknownst to the grieving spouse, what he was describing was the same lifelong repression of one's feelings, particularly healthy anger, which undermines the immune system and poses a risk for malignancy and other illnesses. Let me remind you guys that the Myth of Normal, it talks about health. In this latest chapters, it has been talking about health. So whenever we are describing, I'm reading this book, you're gonna listen, you're gonna hear cancer and a lot of illnesses. But the message that I'm trying to convey here is that it's not only that. It's not only that we have to develop cancer for us to actually understand that there's an attachment. Quite the opposite. When we can actually understand that there is attachment, and we as practitioners or spiritual coaches or spiritual guides or therapists trying to build a practice, you can also fall into that loop. Where does such forsaking of the self come from? Type C, Lydia and Timoshoff pointed out, is not a personality, but rather a behavior pattern that can be modified. I completely agree with her, says Gabor. Precisely because no one is born with such traits ingrained, we can unlearn them. This is awesome news, guys. If you believe that you have a specific personality because this is the way you were raised or you were born, here is an actual possibility. This is actual freedom to us. If you can understand that, okay, I have this pattern, but I can completely unlearn it and become my authentic self, which is what we're pointing to. That's a pathway towards healing, not an easy road by any means, and one we will talk up later in detail, says Gabor. But first, let's see if we can trace the origins of these patterns. Every talk or workshop I give is the inescapable tension, and for most of us, it eventually clashed between two essential needs: attachment and authenticity. This clash is ground zero for most widespread form of trauma in our society, namely the small t. Do you guys remember the small t? We spoke about this a few episodes ago. The small t trauma expressed in a disconnection from the self, even in the absence of abuse or overwhelming threats. If you are aiming to grow your practice, and if you feel paralyzed, confused, anxious, nervous, and fearful, my friend, you are experiencing a disconnection, and disconnection from yourself, okay? Regardless of an actual life-threatening experience. Attachment, as defined by my colleague and previous co-author, the psychologist Dr. Gordon Neufeld, is the drive for closeness, proximity to others, in not only the physical, but the emotional sense as well. Its primary purpose is to facilitate either caretaking or being taken care of. For the human infant, especially at birth, among the most immature, dependent, and helpless animals, and remaining that way for by far the longest period of time, the need for attachment is mandatory. So where is this taking us to understand? Well, there is a need of attachment. There's nothing wrong with attachment. What we have to understand is the impact on attachment in our practices, in our sales, and so forth. Okay. Without reliable adults moved to take care of us, and without our impulse to be close to these caregivers, we simply could not survive. Not for a day. As we'll see in the next chapter, we arrive in the world expecting quote unquote attachment, just as our lungs expect oxygen. Hardwired into our brains, our drive for attachment is mediated by vast and complex neural circuits governing and promoting behavior designed to keep us close to those without whom we cannot live. For many people, these attachment circuits powerfully override the ones that grant us rationally, objective decision-making, or conscious will, a fact that explains much about our behavior across multiple realms. Okay, so if attachment circuits are overriding my ability to be rational, to be objective in my decision-making, and to tap with my conscious willingness, what do you think is happening to your practice? Why do you think it's becoming for you difficult to connect with your clients, to make that sell, and to grow? This is not a coincidence, okay? In infancy, our dependence is an obligatory and long-haul proposition. Everything from the crying to cuteness to unignorable cues babies transmit is an inbuilt behavior tailored by nature to keep our caregivers giving and caring. But the need for attachment does not expire once we're out of the diapers. It continues to motivate us through our lifespan. As we saw in chapter 3, unsatisfactory attachment can wreak havoc even with adult physiology. What distinguishes our earliest attachment relationships, and crucially, the coping styles we develop to maintain them, is that they form a template for how we approach all of our significant relationships. long after we have grown into interactions with spouses, partners, employers, friends, colleagues, into all aspects of our personal, professional, social, even political lives. Culture, as we see in a trivial form in popular media gossip about who loves, leaves, or lies to whom. Attachment, along with attachment frustration, as in the satisfaction that we have along with Mick Jagger's Can Get Out of, is never far from our minds. Our other core is authenticity. So is it clear? Is attachment clear for you guys? So attachment is that relationship between taking care of and being taken care by someone else. Our other core is the authenticity piece. Definitions vary, but here is one that I think it applies best to the discussion. The quality of being true to oneself and the capacity to shape one's own life from a deep knowledge of the self. I love this definition. What may not be apparent is that authenticity is not some abstract aspiration, no mere luxury for new agers dabbling in self-improvement. Like attachment, it is a drive rooted in survival instincts. At its most concrete and pragmatic, it means simply this: knowing our gut feelings when they arise and honoring them. Imagine our African ancestors on the savannah sensing the presence of some natural predator. Just how long will she survive in her gut feeling warning of danger are suppressed? The elemental root of authenticity is the Greek autos, or self, closely related to author or authority. To be authentic is to be true to oneself, arising from one's own unique and genuine essence, to be plugged into this inner GPS and to navigate from it. A healthy sense of self does not preclude caring for others. I'll repeat this one. A healthy sense of self does not preclude caring for others or being affected or influenced by them. It is not rigid about expansive and inclusive. Authenticity's only dictate is that we, not externally imposed expectations, be the true author of and authority over our own life. How powerful is that? If we can actually tap with our authenticity, and if you're aiming to grow your practice, to increase your sales, to have new clients, to be of service as a practitioner, as a therapist, as a spiritual guide, a spiritual coach, then what's most important here is for you to do it from that place of authenticity. The seed of Wu does not lie in her having these two needs, but in the fact that life too often orchestrates a face-off between the two. The dilemma is this: what happens if our needs for attachment are imperiled by our authenticity, our connection to what we truly feel? What happens, in other words, when one non-negotiable need is fitted by circumstance against the other? These circumstances might include parental addiction, mental illness, family violence, and poverty, over conflict, or profound unhappiness. The stresses indeed by society on children as well as adults. Even without this, the tragic tension between attachment and authenticity can arise. Not being seen and accepted for who we are is sufficient. So let's do a recap and let's close this live transmission for today. We have attachment, and we have, which arises from that survival mode of our existence, and we have authenticity. This is our connection with our true self. There is the possibility of internal struggle between these two, meaning I can think that I'm being authentic when I'm actually being attached. So we will explore this in greater detail next week when I continue with this reading. But just for today, if you're building that practice, if you want to increase your sales, if you want your clients, the people you work with, to come back and work with you because you have so much to give, you really have to come back and start reflecting. Am I being attached or am I being authentic? And how can I actually define which one of these two it's happening inside of me right now? Okay? I wish you guys a wonderful week. We're going to see each other next week exactly at this time. I am in Colombia for the moment, but we're still doing these wonderful readings. Please, if you have any questions, any comments, if you are liking this content or not liking this content, please let me know, because I really, really have this sense of I want to make sure that we're working with the anxiety, with the stress, so that we can actually move on forward and grow our practices, because the need is there. But if you are a healer, if you are a helper, you cannot really help from a place of attachment. You'll have to do it from a place of authenticity. Take care, you guys. I send you a big hug. Bye-bye.